Dawn breaks softly over Florence, painting the sky in delicate hues of peach and lavender, as the first light spills over the red-tiled rooftops and glints off the surface of the Arno River. The city is still asleep, save for the faint chirp of sparrows nested in the branches of cypress trees and the gentle gurgle of the river, which winds through the heart of the city like a silver ribbon. Leonardo da Vinci sits on a weathered stone bench along the riverbank, his legs crossed, a leather-bound notebook resting on his lap and a sharpened quill tucked behind his ear. He is dressed in a simple linen tunic, its sleeves rolled up to his elbows, exposing his long, slender hands that will one day paint masterpieces, but for now, are focused solely on the dance of water before him. His eyes, sharp and observant, are fixed on the river's surface, where sunlight refracts through the clear, cool water, turning the pebbles beneath into glistening jewels. The current flows steadily, but not uniformly. Here, it quickens, swirling into tight, mesmerizing eddies. There, it slows, rippling gently as it brushes against the smooth stones of the riverbed. Leonardo leans forward slightly, his breath soft and steady, as if afraid to disturb the delicate balance of the water's movement. He watches, transfixed, as two opposing currents meet, their waters weaving together in a seamless, fluid embrace, light blue and silver threads merging, twisting, and separating again, like a living tapestry. He traces the path of a single with his gaze, its center a deep, dark spiral that pulls in small bits of debris, fallen leaves, a stray petal, a speck of dust, only to spin them out again, swirling and dancing before they drift away with the current. The edges of the are gilded by the dawn light, the water catching the sun and shimmering like crushed gold. He notices how the water accelerates as it spirals inward, the ripples growing tighter, more defined, before dissolving into the main current. It is a dance of force and grace, of chaos and order, a perfect harmony of motion that fascinates him, that stirs something deep in his curious mind. Beneath the surface, he can see the way the water moves in layers, the topmost current gliding smoothly over a slower, deeper flow, their boundaries distinct yet fluid. When the current hits a protruding stone, it splits, sending small waves rippling outward, their crests catching the light before collapsing into tiny, frothy bubbles. The bubbles are delicate, translucent, iridescent in the dawn glow, some clinging to the stone for a moment, their surfaces stretching and warping, before popping softly, merging back into the river as if they never existed. Leonardo leans closer, his fingers hovering just above the water's surface, feeling the cool mist that rises from the current, the faint spray that clings to his skin like tiny diamonds. He picks up his quill, dipping it into a small inkwell he has set beside him on the bench, and begins to sketch. His hand moves quickly, yet precisely, capturing the curve of the way the ripples radiate outward, the delicate shape of the bubbles as they form and burst. He does not just draw what he sees, he draws what he feels, the flow of the water, the tension between movement and stillness, the invisible forces that guide each eddy and each wave. His notebook fills with lines, curved, fluid, dynamic, each stroke a reflection of the river's rhythm. He jots down notes in his neat, slanted handwriting, annotating the angles of the eddies, the speed of the current, the way the water interacts with the riverbed. Water moves in spirals, each a microcosm of the universe, force and grace, destruction and renewal, all in one breath. The dawn light grows brighter, casting longer shadows across the riverbank, and the city begins to stir, merchants opening their shops, women carrying water buckets to the river, the distant clatter of a cart on cobblestones. But Leonardo does not notice. He is completely absorbed, his world narrowed down to the river, the water, the dance of motion before him. He watches as a leaf is caught in spinning round and round, its edges dipping into the water, before being carried away downstream. He notices how the foam collects in the crevices of the stones, forming small pools that glint like silver, before being swept away by the next wave. His fingers brush a strand of hair from his face, his eyes never leaving the water. He thinks about the nature of movement, about how water never stays still, yet always follows a pattern, how it adapts, bends, flows around obstacles, yet never loses its essence. It is a lesson in resilience, in grace, in the beauty of impermanence. He sketches another, adding finer details, the way the water thins at the edges, the way the light plays on its surface, the tiny droplets that are thrown into the air as the current crashes against the stones. His notes become more detailed, more passionate, as he seeks to capture not just the appearance of the water, but its soul, the invisible energy that drives its motion. As the first hour of the day draws to a close, the river continues to flow, its currents swirling and rippling, its bubbles forming and bursting, its rhythm unchanging yet ever evolving. Leonardo closes his notebook for a moment, leaning back on the bench, and takes a deep breath, filling his lungs with the cool, fresh air, scented with the river's dampness, the scent of cypress trees, and the faint sweetness of blooming jasmine from a nearby garden. He looks out at the way the dawn light turns its surface into a sheet of gold, at the endless dance of water that has captivated him for hours. In this moment, there is no noise, no distraction, only him, the river, and the quiet magic of observing the world in its most delicate, most beautiful form. He picks up his notebook again, his quill ready, eager to capture more of the river's secrets. For Leonardo, the water is not just water, it is a source of inspiration, a teacher, a reflection of the universe's infinite complexity. And as he sits there, in the soft dawn light of Florence, sketching the swirls and ripples of he knows that he is not just recording a physical phenomenon, he is capturing a moment of pure, unadulterated beauty, a moment that will live on in his notes, in his art, and in the quiet wonder of the world around him, leaving the soft glow of Florence's dawn and the gentle murmur of the Arno River behind. Leonardo da Vinci steps into his workshop, a dim, intimate space tucked away in a quiet corner of the city, shielded from the bustle of the streets outside. The air inside is thick with the earthy scent of pigment, the sharp tang of linseed oil, and the faint, warm aroma of beeswax, mixing together to create a scent that feels like a second skin to him. Sunlight filters through a single small window high on the wall, casting a thin beam of light that cuts through the dust motes floating in the air, but it is not the sun that illuminates the space, it is a single tallow candle, perched on a cluttered wooden workbench, its flame burning steady and low, casting a warm, golden glow that wraps around every surface. The workshop is a treasure trove of curiosity, wooden shelves line the walls, filled with jars of pigment, vials of oil, bundles of brushes, and small stone carvings. A half-finished painting leans against one wall, its surface covered in faint sketches and swathes of color, while a clay model of a human skull rests on a nearby table, its hollow eye sockets turned toward the candlelight. Scattered across the workbench are sheets of parchment, covered in Leonardo's meticulous sketches, some of human hands, some of bird wings, some of the swirling eddies of the Arno River, and a small, smooth wooden sphere, polished to a soft sheen, placed at the center of his focus. Leonardo stands before the workbench, his body slightly hunched, his eyes fixed intently on the wooden sphere. He has positioned the candle just to the left of the sphere, its flame casting a sharp shadow that stretches across the workbench, while the opposite side of the sphere glows in the warm light. His sleeves are rolled up, his forearms dusted with a fine layer of pigment, and his long, nimble fingers hover just inches from the sphere, as if he could touch the light and shadow themselves. The only sounds in the workshop are the soft crackle of the candle flame, the faint rustle of parchment as it shifts on the table, and the delicate, rhythmic scrape of his palette knife against a wooden palette, subtle, almost imperceptible, a gentle background hum that blends with the hush of the space. He studies the sphere with a reverence bordering on devotion, his eyes tracing every curve, every shift of light and shadow. He notices how the candlelight bathes the left side of the sphere in a warm, golden glow, fading gradually into a soft, muted gray where light and shadow meet, a delicate, indistinct line that is neither fully light nor fully dark. This is the chiaroscuro, the play of light and shadow that has fascinated him for years, but today, he is not just observing it, he is dissecting it, trying to capture the exact moment where light fades into shadow, where one form merges into another without a sharp edge. Why do the edges blur? He murmurs to himself, his voice soft, almost a whisper, as he picks up the sphere and turns it slowly in his hands. The shadow shifts with the movement, the gray area expanding and contracting, the line between light and dark never quite fixed. He sets the sphere back down, leaning closer to study the transition again, his breath warm against the cool wood. He sees how the light does not stop abruptly, but seeps into the shadow, fading like smoke, like mist, until it disappears completely. It is a softness, a fluidity, that he has never quite captured in his sketches or paintings, not yet. He picks up his palette, his fingers wrapping around the smooth handle of the palette knife. The palette is dotted with blobs of pigment, soft whites, warm umbers, deep grays, and he dips the tip of the knife into a small pool of linseed oil, mixing it with a touch of white and gray pigment until it forms a soft, translucent paste. The scrape of the knife against the wood is gentle, a soft scratch that echoes faintly in the quiet workshop, blending with the crackle of the candle. He dips a fine brush into the mixture, and with a steady hand, he begins to sketch the sphere on a sheet of parchment, focusing not just on the light and shadow, but on the delicate transition between them. At first, he draws a sharp line between light and dark, but it feels wrong, too harsh, too rigid, nothing like the soft blur he sees before him. He shakes his head, wiping the brush on a rag, and tries again. This time, he applies the pigment in thin, translucent layers, building up the color slowly, blending the white of the light into the gray of the transition, then into the deep umber of the shadow. He works with a patience that borders on obsession, his hand moving with precise, deliberate strokes, the brush gliding over the parchment like a feather. The scrape of the palette knife continues, a steady rhythm, as he mixes more pigment, adjusting the hue and consistency until it matches the soft blur of the sphere's edge. As he works, he begins to see it, the secret of the blurred edge, the technique that will one day be known as sfumato, from the Italian word sfuma, meaning to smoke or to fade. It is not about sharp lines or bold contrasts, but about softness, about blending colors and tones so seamlessly that they fade into one another like smoke. He applies another layer of pigment, his brush moving in small, circular motions, merging the light and shadow until there is no longer a distinct line, only a soft, hazy transition, like the mist that clings to the Arno at dawn. His eyes light up with a quiet excitement, a spark of discovery that makes his hands tremble slightly. The candle flame flickers, casting new shadows across the workshop, and the scrape of the palette knife continues, a gentle accompaniment to his work. Leonardo leans back for a moment, studying his sketch, the sphere, with its soft, smoky edges, its perfect blend of light and shadow, and a faint smile tugs at the corner of his lips. He has done it, he has captured the elusive transition, the magic of light fading into shadow like smoke. This is sfumato, a technique that will redefine art, that will make his paintings feel alive, as if the figures on the canvas are breathing, their edges soft and natural, just like the world around him. He dips his brush again, eager to refine his work, to perfect the technique that has just been born in that quiet, candlelit workshop. The workshop remains hush, the only sounds the crackle of the candle, the soft scrape of the palette knife, and the gentle rustle of his brush against parchment. Outside, the city of Florence bustles, but inside, time stands still, for Leonardo da Vinci, for the candlelight, for the birth of a technique that will echo through the ages, a testament to his curiosity, his patience, and his unyielding desire to capture the beauty of the world in all its soft, smoky glory. The candlelight in the workshop dims slightly as the morning sun climbs higher, streaming through the small window to cast longer, clearer beams across the cluttered workbench. Leonardo da Vinci sits cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by sheets of parchment, small metal gears, and a half-carved wooden frame that will one day be the skeleton of his most audacious dream, a machine that can carry a man into the sky, to soar like the birds he has watched since childhood. His hair is askew, dusted with wood shavings and a hint of metal filings, and his linen tunic is smudged with ink and grease, but his eyes are alight with a quiet, unwavering focus, the kind of focus that blurs the line between work and meditation, between science and soul. On a wooden stand beside him, a glass jar holds a single dragonfly, its wings spread wide, preserved in a clear liquid that catches the sunlight and makes the delicate veins of its wings glow like fine silver threads. Leonardo reaches out, his long fingers brushing the glass gently, as if touching the insect itself would its fragile beauty. For hours, he has sat like this, watching the dragonfly's wings, thin, translucent, and impossibly strong, studying the way they curve, the way they vibrate when caught in a draft, the precise angle at which they beat to keep the insect aloft. He leans closer, his eyes narrowing, as he traces the network of veins with his gaze, noting how they branch out like tiny rivers, distributing strength and flexibility in perfect harmony. Nature does not waste a single line, he murmurs to himself, his voice so soft it barely breaks the silence of the workshop. He picks up a quill and dips it into ink, his hand moving quickly yet meticulously across a sheet of parchment, sketching the dragonfly's wing in intricate detail, each vein, each curve, each tiny indentation that allows it to cut through the air with such grace. Beside the wing, he jots down notes in his neat, slanted handwriting, calculating the frequency of its vibrations, the force required to keep it moving, the ratio of wing size to body weight. A wing must be light enough to rise, yet strong enough to withstand the wind, he writes, flexible enough to bend, yet rigid enough to hold its shape. Nature has solved this riddle, now I must too. The workshop is filled with the soft, rhythmic sounds of his work, the scratch of quill on parchment, the faint clink of metal gears as he picks them up and turns them in his hands, the gentle whir of a small wooden will he has crafted to mimic the motion of a bird's wing. He sets aside the quill and picks up two small brass gears, their teeth sharp and perfectly aligned. He holds them between his thumb and forefinger, rotating one slowly, feeling the way the teeth mesh together, smooth, precise, with a soft, satisfying click-clack that echoes faintly in the quiet space. The sound is rhythmic, almost hypnotic, and he closes his eyes for a moment, letting the sensation of the gears' movement seep into his bones, letting the logic of their guide his thoughts. This is where the magic happens, not in the grandeur of finished inventions, but in the quiet, methodical process of reasoning, of connecting the dots between nature and machine. He thinks of the birds he has watched over the Arno River, how they spread their wings to catch the wind, how they adjust their feathers to steer, how they glide for minutes without flapping, as if suspended in time. He thinks of the dragonfly's wings, how their rapid vibration creates lift, how their delicate structure balances strength and lightness. And he thinks of the gears in his hands, how their precise can translate motion into force, how a series of carefully calibrated parts can mimic the grace of nature itself. He spreads out a large sheet of parchment, covered in sketches of his flying machine, wings modeled after the dragonflies, a wooden frame light enough to be lifted by the wind, a system of gears and pulleys to control the wings' movement. He leans over the sketch, his finger tracing the lines of the wings, calculating the angle at which they must be positioned, the speed at which they must beat, the force required to lift a man's weight. His mind works like a well-oiled machine, moving from observation to calculation to invention, each thought building on the last, each step guided by logic and curiosity. There is no chaos here, no distraction, only a quiet, meditative focus, as if he has merged with his work, as if the line between his mind and the machine he is creating has dissolved. Outside, a sparrow chirps, its song drifting through the open window, and Leonardo pauses for a moment, lifting his head to listen. He smiles faintly, thinking of how that small bird holds the secret to flight, how its wings are a masterpiece of nature's engineering. He picks up the dragonfly jar again, studying the wings once more, and feels a surge of awe, a quiet, humbling awe at the complexity of the natural world, at the way every detail has a purpose, every curve a reason. He dips his quill again, adding more notes to his sketch, refining his calculations, adjusting the design of the gears to match the rhythm of the dragonfly's wings. The click-clack of gears continues, mixing with the scratch of the quill and the faint rustle of parchment, creating a gentle symphony of creation. Leonardo's breathing is slow and steady, his body relaxed, his mind fully immersed in the task at hand. For him, this is not work, it is meditation. It is a way to connect with the world, to understand its secrets, to bridge the gap between what is and what could be. He loses track of time, the morning sun shifting across the workshop, casting new light on his sketches, but he does not notice. He is too busy chasing a dream, the dream of flight, the dream of mimicking nature's grace, the dream of reaching beyond the limits of what it means to be human. He sets down the quill and picks up the wooden frame of his flying machine, holding it up to the light. The wings, still unfinished, are thin and delicate, their veins carved with the same precision as the dragonflies. He imagines it soaring above Florence, above the Arno River, the wind rushing through the wings, the gears turning smoothly, carrying him into the sky like a bird. A faint, bittersweet smile tugs at his lips. He knows this dream may never be finished, that the machine may never take flight, but that does not matter. What matters is the process, the curiosity, the quiet joy of exploring the unknown, of losing himself in the logic of nature and the magic of invention. The workshop remains quiet, the only sounds the gentle click-clack of gears, the scratch of the quill, and the faint chirp of the sparrow outside. Leonardo sits back down, picking up his quill again, ready to continue his work, to refine his sketches, to adjust his calculations, to chase a dream that may never be realized. For him, the journey is more important than the destination, the act of exploring more meaningful than the invention itself. In this quiet, meditative state, surrounded by his sketches and gears and the preserved dragonfly, he is not just a scientist or an artist, he is a dreamer, lost in the beauty of logic, the wonder of nature, and the endless possibility of what could be. The night has settled over Florence like a soft, dark blanket, wrapping the city in a hush that seeps through the cracks of Leonardo da Vinci's workshop. The candle flame, now low and steady, casts a warm, golden glow over the cluttered space, its light spilling over half-finished sketches, jars of pigment, and the masterpiece that rests on an easel at the center of the room, the Mona Lisa. Her face, bathed in the candle's light, holds that elusive, eternal smile, her eyes following Leonardo as he moves, as if she is awake, watching him, sharing in the quiet of the night. The workshop is filled with the faint, earthy scent of linseed oil and aged parchment, a familiar aroma that has clung to him for years, a scent of creation, of patience, of dreams. Leonardo stands before the painting, his brush held loosely in his hand, its tip still damp with the soft brown pigment he has been using to refine the curve of her smile. For hours, he has stood here, leaning in to adjust a single stroke, to soften an edge with his signature sfumato technique, to capture the exact flicker of light in her eyes that makes her smile feel alive, neither happy nor sad, neither here nor there, but something eternal, something that defies time. His shoulders are slightly hunched, the weight of hours of focused work evident in the faint tiredness around his eyes, but his gaze is still gentle, still reverent, as if he is looking not at a painting, but at a living, breathing soul. Slowly, he lifts the brush, bringing it to his lips for a moment, a habit he has developed over years of painting, a quiet, thoughtful gesture before he sets his tools down. He places the brush carefully in a jar of linseed oil, the soft splash of the brush meeting the oil barely breaking the silence. His fingers, stained with pigment, soft umbers, warm golds, deep grays, brush a strand of graying hair from his face, leaving a faint smudge of color on his cheek, a mark of his devotion to his work. He steps back, his hands resting on his hips, and takes a deep breath, his eyes never leaving the Mona Lisa's face. There is something sacred in this moment, in the quiet of the night, in the glow of the candle, in the presence of the painting that has consumed his thoughts for so long. He sees the way the light plays on her skin, the soft blur of her features that makes her seem to shift, to breathe, as if you could reach out and touch her cheek. He notices the way her smile tugs at the corner of her lips, a secret shared between them, a secret that he alone has captured on canvas. For a moment, he feels a surge of awe, not at his own work, but at the beauty of the human spirit, at the way a single expression can hold so much mystery, so much emotion, so much eternity. He turns away from the painting, his steps slow and deliberate, and moves to the cluttered workbench where his notes are scattered, sheets of parchment covered in his meticulous handwriting, sketches of her hands, her eyes, her smile, alongside calculations about light, shadow, and the human form. The notes are messy, overlapping, some crossed out, some annotated with small drawings, a chaotic tapestry of his thoughts, his curiosity, his endless pursuit of knowledge. He begins to gather them, one by one, his fingers brushing the rough parchment, feeling the indentations of his quill, the faint smudges of ink. The sound of pages turning fills the workshop, a soft, rhythmic rustle, slow and steady, like the gentle lapping of the Arno River at dawn. He sorts the notes into neat piles, grouping sketches of the Mona Lisa with his studies of light, his observations of nature with his calculations of flight. As he works, his mind wanders, drifting through the years of his life, days spent by the Arno, watching the water swirl, hours in the workshop, dissecting light and shadow, moments of wonder, watching a dragonfly's wings vibrate, a bird soar through the sky. He thinks of all the things he has learned, all the questions he has asked, all the dreams he has chased, and yet, he feels a quiet humility, a sense that he has barely scratched the surface of the knowledge that surrounds him. The knowledge ocean stretches out before him, endless and vast, its depths filled with secrets he will never fully uncover, secrets of nature, of light, of the human soul. He runs a hand over the stack of notes, his fingers lingering on a sketch of the Mona Lisa's smile, and feels a sense of peace. He has dedicated his life to exploring that ocean, to capturing its beauty, its complexity, its mystery, and even if he can never reach the shore, the journey has been enough. There is no regret, no longing for more, only a quiet acceptance, a gentle gratitude for the time he has had to create, to explore, to dream. A voice, soft and weary, like a whisper carried on the night breeze, begins to drift through the workshop, his own voice, or perhaps a narrator's, recounting the quiet moments of his life, the joy of creation, the wonder of discovery. But with each word, the voice grows softer, fainter, as if fading into the night, merging with the rustle of pages and the flicker of the candle. It speaks of eternity, of how art and knowledge outlive the artist, of how the Mona Lisa's smile will continue to captivate, to intrigue, long after he is gone. We are but fleeting shadows, the voice murmurs, barely audible, but our creations, our dreams, our curiosity, our love for the world, they are eternal. The rustle of pages continues, rhythmic and soothing, a gentle lullaby that fills the workshop. Leonardo finishes sorting his notes, placing them carefully in a leather-bound folder, which he tucks away on a shelf beside his other notebooks. He turns back to the Mona Lisa, his gaze soft, his expression peaceful. He stands there for a long moment, watching her smile, as if saying goodbye, as if sharing one last quiet moment with the masterpiece he has brought to life. The candle flame flickers, casting her shadow on the wall, making her seem to move, to breathe, to smile more brightly. The voice fades completely now, leaving only the soft rustle of pages and the faint crackle of the candle. The night grows quieter, the air cooler, and Leonardo feels a gentle weariness settle over him, a tiredness born of passion, of focus, of a life well lived. He moves to a wooden chair beside the easel, sitting down slowly, his eyes still on the Mona Lisa. The rustle of pages stops, and for a moment, there is only silence, broken only by the candle's soft crackle and the faint, distant hoot of an owl outside. As the last minutes of the night tick by, the candle flame grows dimmer, casting a softer, warmer glow over the painting, over the workshop, over Leonardo. His eyes flutter closed, his breathing slow and steady, merging with the quiet of the night. The Mona Lisa's smile remains, eternal and mysterious, watching over him as he drifts into a gentle sleep, a dream where the ocean of knowledge is calm, where the wind carries him like a bird, where the brush moves effortlessly across the canvas, and where all his unfinished dreams find their completion. The workshop is still, the candle flickers on, and the Mona Lisa's smile lingers, eternal, peaceful, a testament to the power of creation, the beauty of curiosity, and the quiet magic of a life dedicated to wonder.